Hey there, my name is David Rogers, and I want to welcome you to the Nashville Jazz Workshop's Artist Spotlight, where every month I get the chance to sit down with a handful of artists with upcoming performances at the legendary Jazz Cave in Nashville, Tennessee. We get to dive into a bit of jazz history while also learning about each artist's process of preparing for their upcoming show. This week, I sat down with Hammond organ legend Ralph T. Lofton ahead of his organ tribute to gospel music on Sunday, May 26th. We chatted about his Memphis roots and how he first started playing the Hammond organ, how he developed his sound into what it is today as an official Hammond artist. And Ralph shared some of the things he's most looking forward to at what will be his very first show as leader this Sunday. I hope you enjoy. Ralph, thanks so much for being here.
David, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, man.
Of course. I'm really excited about your show on May 26th.
Right.
A tribute to gospel music.
Yeah, that's kind of something.
Yes,
And,
yes.
one of the things I've kind of been excited about it. Out of all of these years of doing this would be my very first solo performance as an artist, an independent instrumental artist.
That's right. And that just blows my mind. I have so many things I want to ask you. But I guess let's start at the very beginning.
Okay.
How did you start playing the Hammond organ?
Oh, gosh. Okay. Of course, my story goes back to when I was 9 years old.
Wow.
I started playing piano. God bless me with the talent to be able to play piano. So a few years went by after that. I took an interest because we had an organ at church.
Sure.
Now, this was back before Leslie's were even added to the Hammond organ.
Wow.
Just the tone cabinet was what they had. And so that's when I started playing and just took an interest in it and kept at it until I felt comfortable, enough to be able to play and allow it to work for me.
Sure. And what was that process like developing your sound? One of the I saw Mike Hicks last night, who of course has a show coming up as well. And one of the things that we were talking about is no matter what the context is, you sound like you. It could be in a track with 100 different layers.
Right.
It could just be solo. It could be in a trio like what you'll be playing on Sunday.
Right.
But you have a unmistakable sound. So
Wow.
how did you arrive at those, not just the tone settings, but how did you develop your ear?
Well, I had a few mentors that I came up under
Okay.
out of Memphis, Tennessee. Of course, that's where I was born and raised. There were three musicians specifically. One was Sherman Helton,
Okay.
who kind of took me under his wing. He was an organ player for his church. He hired me to come play for their church after hearing me play.
Okay.
And just took an interest in my sound. But see, that time I was developing.
Okay.
So I was, I guess, had to be 12, 13 years old.
Wow.
And developing then, but learning at the same time. He had this specific organ sound that just always intrigued me when I heard him play. Then he introduced me to two other musicians that, of course, were all older. One guy is named David Flagg.
Okay.
David reminds me of you a lot as far as how he plays
Okay.
and the way he formats his chord structures. And not only that, but he was also a piano player, but he played organ.
Okay.
And this guy, Jesse Butler, they called him Spooky. He was an albino.
Okay.
But he was called Spooky. He was a jazz player, but he played at church.
I see.
And David and Spooky played together.
Okay.
So it was always just amazing to sit and watch them, how they formatted their chord structures and played together, never stepping on each other. And just the sound. The sound was always so warm and inviting. And that was the thing that really always intrigued me about the three of those guys and their organ playing. So in doing so, I would just take their techniques and listen to and work on them myself until I got comfortable enough
Yes.
to be able to, I guess, come up with a sound that worked for me.
Yes.
And once I did and I heard it and people started to recognize it, it made me comfortable enough to say, okay, this works, so I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah.
And that's what I've done all these years.
Yes, yes. And Memphis is home.
Right.
But you're in Nashville now.
I've been in Nashville.
So how did you end up here in Nashville?
I had got to a point in Memphis that I was looking to step up my career.
Sure.
Had done quite a few things in Memphis and wanted to change. I wanted to step into another level of musicianship. I wanted to be able to be a part of the industry itself. And in doing so, I moved from Memphis in 1984 to Nashville.
Wow.
Not knowing anybody. And my philosophy was, if it don't work, I'm only 2.5, 3 hours away from, and I can just go right on back and pick up where I left off at. But God blessed, and so far, things have worked out all these years.
Yes, I'd say so.
Haven't turned back.
Right. 40 years. That's amazing. 40 years in Nashville.
Yeah, 40, a little over 40, about 42 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in that time, one of the things I was talking about with Mike that he pointed out is everything that we listen to, it feels like you're playing on. Just the list of credits is so prolific. Along the way, you've also become a Hammond artist.
Right.
How did that come to be?
Well, this guy, Jimmy Smith,
Yes.
not to confuse with the
different one.
actual artist, former artist, Jimmy Smith.
Okay.
Jimmy Smith, he's a musician. I think he moved to Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure.
But he used to live here.
Okay.
And we have known each other for a few years, somehow connected in that regard because he was already an artist with Hammond.
Okay.
We got to talking about it, and he said, man, you need to be on the roster.
Yes.
So he went to, a few people and said, y'all need to sign this guy up as an artist.
Yeah.
And now about maybe 6, 7 years or so that I've been with them.
Fantastic. Talk to me a little bit about this show in particular coming up. Of course, you're playing the organ, but you also have Jay White on bass, Marcus Finney on drums.
Yeah, that's within itself.
Yes.
Is an exciting thing, man. Because if anybody knows Marcus and Jay,
yes,
both of these guys, man, are both artists within themselves.
That's right.
Marcus, of course, his credit just rides all over the place, and Marcus is one of the most sought-after drummers these days.
Yes.
As well as Jay as a bass player and singer. So I reached out to both of them, and fortunately, their schedule allowed them to be open.
Yes.
And they accepted. Both was like, I said, well, I can only do this, I can only do that.
Sure.
They're like, man, we would play for you for free.
That's right.
So, but it worked out, man, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
We got a list of my songs that I've done over the years on a few of my records.
Okay.
I think the audience is going to be really pleased with what we present.
Yes.
We're excited about it. A little nervous, but it's a good nervous.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So first time being out front in front of, the audience and being the one that they'll be focused on as opposed to me being in the background.
Right.
And being the musician. So it's all good, and we're just looking forward to it, as well as the music class that we're going to present following the music presentation.
It's really a unique opportunity for the audience in particular to learn from someone of your caliber. It seems that so many of the great Hammond players come up in church, where there's almost a built-in education of sorts, just watching every Sunday or every Wednesday, choir rehearsal, or whatever it might be. It's just kind of built into the experience. But a lot of times, keyboards like myself even, who didn't grow up with a Hammond organ in church necessarily, they have questions about how do I learn about the organ? What would you say to folks like that? For those who don't have that life experience from 9 years old on up through childhood, how does one go about learning more about the Hammond organ?
Well, of course, it is a different instrument than just playing piano. Several aspects of it that you have to become familiar with. It's almost kind of like a drummer. You're using pretty much all your limbs.
Yeah.
You both legs, both feet, both hands.
Yes.
Of course, your mind, because there's so much that you have to work with when it comes to developing sound, clean, being precise as possible, and you have to want it. You have to have the desire to be able to do it. It's not just something you can get up and sit down and start playing around on and it's going to work.
Yeah.
It takes time, that's for sure. It takes time, but if you have the desire to want to do it, I think every musician, especially keyboard player, should take time to at least play around with the organ in order to have an understanding of, what it entails and what all it does. Because when it all boils down, man, there is nothing like the sound of a Hammond organ.
That's right. Yeah.
And, I'm just grateful that I've had the experience and the years of being able to, be on it. And even though I don't teach it, there are things that if you just sit and listen and watch, it's easy to pick up. But you, again, have to have the desire to want to do it.
I want to ask you kind of a technical question. A lot of times when I see you post videos of you playing with a drummer usually, oftentimes, or at least sometimes, there's not a bass player.
Right.
And you're holding down, you're a one-man band, essentially.
Kind of,
you got the two manuals and your 2 feet.
Right.
When playing with someone like Jay, or when playing with the bass player, how do you negotiate the role of your left foot?
First of all, the pedals should be off.
Okay.
Now, that is going to be a part of my discussion as well.
Okay.
But the first thing is the pedals should be off because the bass player is controlling the bottom and the bass notes. So, in essence, there's really no need for you to actually use it. Now, out of habit, my foot will be going.
Okay.
But the sound won't be up.
I see.
Because it's just a natural thing for me to do that.
Okay.
But again, the bottom line is, you should not have the bass pedals on if you have a bass player playing.
Okay.
Because at some point it can clash. Now, it could work at the same time, but you have to be an experienced enough player to understand when you're going to hit a note that will not clash with what the bass player is doing so it doesn't just sound all muddy at the bottom.
Sure, I see. Does it affect your style of playing when you remove your left foot? Do your hands play differently?
They do.
Yeah?
Yeah, they do. It takes you to a freer method of being able to play because you're not concentrating on trying to hold down the bass paddles, not hold down the bass sound.
Yeah.
That way, my left hand has freedom to kind of move a little different than if I were playing bass myself.
Yeah.
Then the top, and you have the more freedom. Now, it all depends on if you are playing, if you're accompanying somebody, or if you're playing instrumental.
I see.
That's going to also play a part in it as well.
Well, I look forward to digging in some more in the masterclass portion with you on Sunday. What is one thing that you are particularly looking forward to about the performance section on Sunday? With all the set list considerations, with the personnel, with it being your first time as a front person for the show, what is one thing that you are particularly looking forward to?
The engagement with the audience, that I will be able to present something through the music that will reach, each person, reach the mind, reach the heart, and have them to leave that concert with a mindset of, okay, this is something I haven't felt before.
Wow.
And if that happens, then God, through me, has done what was necessary.
Fantastic. I can't wait. Ralph, thank you again.
David, thank you, man. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure being in your presence. And
likewise.
I just look forward to Sunday.
Yes.
And just always a pleasure to be around you.